is a 2-day event. So let's go ahead and get started. So here are some basic rules that we're going to be going through. If you have any questions at any step of the meeting, you can go ahead and message either WolfCorp Kevin, WolfCorp Gordon, or WolfCorp Cohen. We will be trying to answer your questions as best as we can. This meeting will be recorded, so if you guys miss a step or just want to watch it later, we will send it out to you guys as like review material. We will be closing this meeting, so in case of people that are joining and leaving, please add the word return to your name so we know to add you back to ongoing meeting. You don't want random people to just be joining mid-meeting or else they're going to be lost. If you and yeah, so we go through a teaching style where we'd like for you to follow along. We are hoping that you have your computers and mouses ready. So let's get started. So we are Wolfcorp Robotics. We are a FTC team of 5 years and first team of 9 years. We're based in Walnut, California in the US. And recently, on our last season, we got our first place Inspire Award in the SoCal FTC region, and we are a third place in our robot game for the last season. So, different CAD softwares. So there's many CAD programs that people use on a daily basis. There are SolidWorks and Inventor, most notably, and also Fusion 360. But those are kind of like computer softwares, and recently there's been pretty good new ones, such as Onshape that we'll be teaching today. Onshape has a lot of nice features that we like as a team. One of them being entirely online. So it is basically a Google Drive. It is like a Google Drive but for CAD. We're able to share our files with each other on a team while basically allowing to work on the same document. It has a really nice animation feature that basically comes with every CAD software and also allows us to make 3D printed parts on a robot. So on our first basic lesson of the day is basically making an Onshape account. So if you guys can go ahead and go to the website, the Onshape website, which is listed here. We will, and it should be sent in the chat soon. And go ahead and go click on sign in. Alright, so after you get to the website, can you guys please click on sign up so we can make your guys' account? We need everyone to make an account in order to do our activity today in order to get used to CADing. Alright, once you're on the sign up page, we are going to click on a public maker plan, not an educational account. For teams that are planning to make their own robot on Onshape in the future, we highly recommend you make an educational account. It takes time for it to be applied, so for sake of practicing right now, go ahead and make a public maker plan. The difference between an educational account and a public maker plan is basically you get to private your models. So currently, if you use a public maker plan, anything you make will be public and anyone can search for it. So we highly recommend if you're an FTC team and planning to make your robot on Onshape to apply for an educational account. And let's go ahead and click on the public maker plan. Can we use an account that we already have? Yes, you can. You can just sit tight while we try to make everyone up to the place that we need them to be. So when you go ahead and press a public maker plan, it should say get started. And after you click on get started, it's going to ask some basic information about you. You do need to put hobbyist/maker in what best describes you, or else it's going to ask you for a little bit more information. So just for the sake of making the sign up process quicker, just say you're a hobbyist slash maker. Alright, after you select hobby slash maker, it's going to ask some basic information about like your company name and how many people are using CAD. Um, you don't really need to enter that information. You can just copy our template up here and it will work, such as like NA, other, and one person, or no interest, and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and copy this step down. And this meeting will be sent out to you guys. So if you guys ever just get behind, we will send out the meeting. Alright, after you enter that information, it's going to ask you for a mobile phone number. You do need to put in a phone number, but that is okay. You guys should be able to fill out that step. And then after you press on activate your account, you should be given your email. And then this step does take a little bit of time. It's like a minute for them to send out the email. But after you click on activate your account, you need to set a password and you shall be prompted with a login screen or a new screen. And I'll give that like 1 or 2 minutes. How to make an Onshape account? It's just going on the website and pressing sign up. So, yeah. They need to check their email. Yes. Sign up, then public maker plan, then get started, and then going through these steps. If you get behind, it's okay. We'll send out the video out so you can catch up on a later time. Alright. So after you created your account, you should be prompted with a menu that looks like this. Setting your default units and then your kind of like blank Google Drive area. So yeah, so we are going to go over, so you are inside your Onshape. It looks like this. It should ask set your default units. You can set it to inches for now. You can change it later in your preferences. And then it's gonna tell you the basic controls. So panning, zoom and rotate. Rotate is using the right click. Pan is holding down the middle button. So if you use a mouse, you click down. Can I use an account that has education instead of public? Yes, that is okay. And then these are the controls. And then obviously setting your name. You can add a picture if you want, but we're just gonna go through very quickly. Okay, so now everyone should have an account. If I need to wait for a little bit, can you guys raise your hand? I'll give you guys like 2 more minutes unless everyone is caught up. Alright, someone has their hand up, so we'll give them like a couple minutes to catch up. Okay, looks like some people are still stuck on how to get into the sign up screen. So when you sign up, you're gonna click on sign in at the top right. Oh wait, I'm already logged in. Alright, so it's gonna look like this on the sign in screen. You're gonna click on sign up. Then when you click on sign up, it's gonna ask you to select your plan. Go click on a public maker plan. Once you click on the public maker plan, it's gonna say Onshape free. And then from here, you can go ahead and click get started. And from here, you can just fill out the basic contacts, just like signing up for any other service. So yeah. When this is what best describes you, you're gonna say hobbyist and maker. This is important, or else it's gonna ask you for extra information that's gonna take a little bit of while. So just do hobbyist and maker. All right. So next on the agenda is how do we import pieces in order to make an assembly, which is basically a giant combination of parts. So importing parts. Importing parts is basically how do we basically get the models that the whatever parts you're using, whether it's Robotics or GoBuilda, how do you get their 3D models that they give us to use into CAD that into a form that we can use in Onshape. So in order to do that, we are going to go to GoBuilda. We use GoBuilda on our team for this year. So this is just a relative example. You can find it on AndyMark or Actobotics or Servo City. So once we go to GoBuilder, we're gonna look for a one hole U channel. So GoBuilder, we're gonna go click on Structure Pieces. We're gonna go to Structure Pieces. We're gonna go click on the channel. And once we find the channel section, we're gonna go to U series channel. And then once we have these, we can find the one hole U channel. So a few things to note on this page. Um, it will have the dimensions for you. So if you were want to have the exact dimensions, if you were to make like a custom 3D model, these are very helpful. SKU, this is basically like a part number. So if you need to reference it in your 3D model, or or you're looking at a parts list, this is very helpful to take note. You can also search this up in Google and type in like the SKU number and GoBuilda, and it will get you like the image. But what we're looking for is the download section down here, right under the pictures. And in the download section, there should be a small link or a small download file called a step file. A step file is basically a 3D model file that basically has all the dimensions needed that you can import into mostly any CAD software, whether it be SolidWorks, Inventor, or in our case, Onshape. And what you're going to do is you're going to download this step file. Now the step file is going to be zipped, so hopefully you know how to extract your file. It's simply just going to your file manager, right clicking, and then press extract. And then you should end up with the file, should end up with well right now this is .zip, but after you extract it, you should have a file that says like this, 1137000100.step. You need this .step file extension in order to actually import a 3D model. How do we get this 3D model? Um, we have a we have a link that has all the models for our training because importing each model does take a bit of a time. But for this case, in order to go over the steps again, because someone asked, you're just gonna go to your website which has the parts or sells the parts. They should have the step file. Sometimes people post it online already in batches, so you don't need to download each one manually. But you go to your website that has the parts. In this case, in our case, GoBuilda. You're gonna go ahead and go to the directory that has the file or the part. So in our case, we're gonna look for a 1x1 U channel. And then we should have like the parts website where you're able to buy the part and look at the pictures of the part. From here, it should have a download section or like a extras section, and then it should say a part something like this, a step file, or a link that says step file. From here, you can just go ahead and click that, and it should download a file for you in a zipped format. And what you have to do is you have to extract it from a zip format because these files are kind of big in terms of memory. After you unzip it, you should have a .step file. Now after you have a .step file, you need to go ahead and import it to Onshape. Onshape does it pretty quickly, or if you're using SolidWorks, it does it basically instantly. But in Onshape, we are going to create a new document, and then I'm just gonna name this import. You guys do not have to do this, but let me re-log in really quick. All right. So we're going to create a new document. And then in this new document, it's going to be blank because we haven't added anything in here yet. So we're going to go ahead and click on the insert a new element and then import. And it's going to ask you to select the file. I'm going to select the file on my end. Here we go. And then it's going to ask me to import to Onshape or combine into a single part studio. Usually the first option does a pretty good job, but sometimes in certain scenarios you might want to try the second option. And you can leave these unchecked because it should import correctly. And then now it's going to import. This does take a couple of minutes sometimes when it translates for bigger models, but we added a small part, so it should show up pretty easily. And there you go. That is how you can import pieces into Onshape. But for the sake of the lesson, we already added everything into a document for you, which is relatively easy. And today we'll be making this robot right here. This is part of the Go Build a Master Kit FTC robot. And we're going to be building this robot within these 2 days that we have together. So, oh, can you please do that again, please? Okay. So let us go back. So, after you go find your part on your website, you, excuse me. After you find your part on your website, there should be a download link, something that says like step file or 3D model file. Go ahead and click that, and then it's going to download a zip file for you. After you get that zip file, you basically extract it or unzip it, and then you should have something that's called a .step file. It looks like this. After you have the .step file, you can go ahead and click on plus or import, plus and then import. And after you click on import, you're going to select the .step file, press open, and then it's going to ask you to import to Onshape, and then you just press OK. You can also import it in a folder. So if you want to create a folder like this and name it parts, and then you can go ahead and port it like this. This can also work. And it will create the Onshape model that you can use inside different assemblies. Now let's get started with the lesson. And I will hand it off to Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. So, first of all, we're gonna have to give everyone the document which has
You're muted. Kevin, you're muted.
okay. Now, so yeah, this document it's gonna be blank, but it has all of the imports in it. So we can just you guys don't have to worry about downloading it and putting it into the document. All we're gonna do is just kind of like insert stuff into our assembly page. So let me just share screen here. So once you click on the link we've sent in chat, this is the Onshape page that it should take you to. It's called Final, as you can see in the top left. Right now I'm in assembly 1 of the document, which is just a blank page, which is what we want right now. And here we're gonna make a copy to edit in the top left. It says it's in blue, and once you click on that, the window should pop up asking you to name your copy. And for this, I'll just call it like Kevin Robot. But go ahead and name it whatever you want, and then create. It's probably going to take a second to kind of like copy everything since you have like a bunch of imports and stuff, but be patient and then we can get started once it's copied. So I've got this copied, but I'll give it a second for everyone else to make a copy. Yeah. Uh, Maybe some of you don't see the blue button. Yeah. So first you have to be logged in to an Onshape account. So make sure you're logged in. Otherwise, I don't really know.
Otherwise, you can't make a copy.
Yeah. So if you see in your top right that you're not logged in, well, go ahead and log in and then you can make your copy. Okay, we'll get started again at like 2:30. Give it maybe like 1 more minute for people who still haven't. Okay. Hopefully all of you have gotten a copy and are in assembly 1 here, which is blank. So our first step is going to be inserting a couple of the parts that we need. So first off, we're going to insert our 2 big channels. We're going to build our chassis so we can have a base to build on. The first channel I'm going to insert here, the part number is 11200017 and 0432. And so that's going to be one of the bigger channels that we can build on. And we're gonna need 2 of these. So just click on the piece and then click again on the document. And the other piece we're gonna need is this. It's the smaller channel, and the part number here is 11200010 and 0264. Okay, so people might be a little confused here. What I did was I went up to insert. If you made a copy of the document here, just go up to the top left, hit insert, and then it should pop down a bunch of like parts and assemblies that were previously imported by us. Yeah, and then go down and grab the two big channels, and grab one of these smaller channels. And then we're gonna grab 2 of these quad blocks. Yeah, so the channel numbers are the big one is 11200017 and 0432. And that's the big one. For the smaller one, it's 11200010 and 0264. You can kind of see a preview of the image you're placing down, so maybe you can also use that to see which one is which. So once you're done, click the green arrow to confirm it. Otherwise, it'll all disappear. Okay, so once you have all of these pieces imported, you need some time. Give like 1 more minute maybe, and then we're gonna have to keep going. So to delete a piece, if you imported something, you can just like highlight it or click on it and then just press backspace. So like I just usually box highlight it and then press delete or backspace, and that'll just get rid of it. The number for the quad block is 1201, 0043, and 0002. You might see like 2 of the same pieces. They're the same thing basically, so don't bother about picking one or the other. Either of them works. If you see like a parentheses 1, usually that means it's like a duplicate of something, and like they're the same piece. If you guys are still stuck at like copying a document, I think you're better off trying to like look at the watch the recording, because I don't know if we're gonna have enough time if we keep going back. So we're gonna send out the recording, and if you still have questions after that, do hit us up. We'll try our best to answer our questions afterwards. Like, yeah. So yeah, so we're gonna start putting these pieces together now. So even if you guys didn't manage to do this, you can still watch along. Try to see if you can like learn something. So our first step here is gonna go up to the top, the toolbars. We're gonna use what's called a fasten mate to like we're going to use a Fascinate to connect all these pieces together and make them stick together so they move, so they're stuck together. Yeah, so our first Fascinate here is going to be taking this quad block here, and we're going to like stick it to the side of this U channel. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to click on the edge of this screw hole here. And I want to click on the edge of the screw hole, so the fasten button is on the top of the toolbar. It's this like cylindrical shape, and it's like half shaded on the bottom. So if you hover over it, it also says fasten mate. Oops. So once you have the fasten mate window, you know that you're in the fasten mate mode, and you can click on what you want to fasten first. So you want to do the edge of the circle here because it's like it's simpler. If you do the center, I guess you could, but like it might you might end up with some wonky stuff. What we've done is just click on the edge, and it's worked out for us best. So that's our first edge that we want to fasten. And the other side, since we're doing the right side of the quad mount here, we also want to do it on the right side of this U channel here. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm also going to click on the edge of this one screw hole here. Try to make sure that it's only highlighted on this one screw hole. I find it easy to click on if you just kind of zoom in really close. And then once you have that highlighted, just click on it. And then once you have the two clicked, they should just kind of like snap together. So you can see that my quad mount is now on the side of this U channel. And once done, just click on the check mark. And there you go. You have your first quad mount inside of your channel. You have your first mate. So for those that didn't really catch what I did, I'm going to do it again just on the opposite side for this quad mount. Yeah, so once again, I'm using a fasten mate at the top left. It's the cylindrical type of thing with a half shaded bottom. I've clicked it, and this is the fasten mate window. So you know you're in the fasten mate mode. Once again, I'm gonna zoom in onto my quad block here. And then I'm gonna click on the screw hole. I'm gonna click on this screw hole as my first fasten mate. How do you remove a fasten mate? Yeah, so you can go to your left side, and you can see a list of your parts and mates. You can click on one. You can just click on one, and then you can just right click it and delete it. And then you can also like double click a mate that you want to go back to and edit it as well. So I'm back in my second fasten mate here, and I have my first fasten mate. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the other side of this U channel here, which I want to connect the right side of the quad mount to the right side of the U channel. So this is going to take a bit of like mental like imagination of how things are going to like fit where. So I'm going to click here again, and then So you can see how my quad mount here, the two edges are connected, but in the wrong way, right? So what we can do is we can click on these two buttons, which says flip primary axis and reorient secondary axis. And we can kind of like flip it around and try and make it like the right way. So you can see that this flip primary axis kind of like flips it on one side, one axis, and then this reorient one flips it on the other axis. I can't find the tab you're in. Do you mean the Fascinate window or? Okay, you found it. Good for you. So if your Fascinates ever kind of like end up not looking how you want it to, play around with the little arrow buttons and see if you can like flip it into the correct position. Otherwise, you might actually need to like redo your Fascinate. So I have both of my quad mounts on my channel here. How to make a copy one more time. Once again, if we keep going back, we might not have enough time for the entire day here. So if you guys do get stuck, we're gonna send out a recording, and you guys can rewatch it from there. If you still have questions, then message us. We'd be happy to help. Can we fasten it to the longer channel or the smaller one? We're gonna do it to the smaller one in this case, since this is what's gonna go in between the two bigger ones. So once I'm done here, once I have both of my quad blocks here, so this is kind of a little shortcut I like to use. We're gonna be using two of these exact same things, but I don't really want to do it more than I have to. And since this is the exact same block that we're gonna be using to connect the big ones, I can just copy and paste it. And copy and paste here, so just so you can just box highlight all of the parts. Oops. You can box highlight all of the, make sure you box highlight like the channels, the quad blocks. And you can Control C once you have all of them highlighted in yellow, and then Control V again. And this is gonna copy all of our pieces and all of its mates, so we don't have to do all that again. All right, and now I have two of these channels with quad blocks on them. Make sure you're not like highlighting the other stuff as well. So you might want to like orient your camera in a way that you can highlight without getting anything else. So now we have all the pieces that we need for our kind of the base of our chassis. We can start using our Fascinate again to connect the two big ones. What we're going to do here is we're going to connect this side of the quad block onto this side of the longer channels. So going back into our Fascinate here, we're going to use this. We're going to use this Fascinate here, and then we're going to click on one of these screw holes again. And that's there. And then so we're going to first put this at around from the back of this long channel, it's going to be 5 big holes back. So in this case, you can really use any of them. You might even want to use the big one to the big hole in the middle to stick it on, but I'm used to using one of the smaller holes because that can like, I make sure like where it is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So it's going to be 5 big holes backwards. And then is that right? Uh-oh. Okay, that's a little wonk, but um, so what you can do is also, if your pieces are kind of moving the other way, you can fix a piece so that it doesn't like, you can fix the piece so that it doesn't move the other way you want. So it does, the big piece doesn't move to the other piece or the smaller piece. Can you repeat it, please? Which part do you want me to repeat? So once again, I'm gonna try and the fastening. So go to the top left is the fasten mate, and then click on it, and then take your first edge that you want to fasten, and then click on that, and then go over to the second thing you want to fasten the first one to, which in this case, I want to fasten this block onto this side, the side of this channel, right? And this is going to be 5 holes from the back, 5 big holes from the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. And there. And then the second one, the second channel is going to be, so this one now is, click on that screw hole, and then it's going to be 6 holes from the front. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then click there. And then it's, I have to reorient it. And then there you go. So, oops, the other way. So there's a side view for all of you guys who are trying to like get it. And then we're obviously gonna just stick this channel onto the just the other side of these 2 channels now to complete the chassis. So if you know how to do that, go ahead. But yeah. So I'm gonna take my fasten mate here and I'm gonna zoom into my screw hole here, and I'm gonna do the front one first here. So I'm gonna count from 6 holes back on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since I clicked on the top left of my quad block there, I'm gonna click that now, and then those should just fit in. Is that right? Ooh, that's not right. Yikes. So as you can see, this isn't exactly right. But what I can do is I can go back into my last fasten here. On the left side, you have all your tabs and go down to your fasten, and I can delete one of the fastens. So I can see that's not right. So I want to redo that. And then I can go down and choose again, essentially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it this one? That's still not right. Maybe yeah, from the back, maybe then. Click there. Or is it the first one I screwed up? 2. No? Oops. Okay. It's this one. There you go. That's better. So this is the step that we should end on here. I think we can take like 5 minutes to answer questions on how to get this to this spot. If you have questions, go ahead and ask like either me, Gordon, or Cohen, and we'll try our best. So after this step, I'm going to hand it off to Cohen, who's going to show you how to start putting in axles and motors and how to like kind of rotate them. So if you do have questions on how to get to this spot, now would be a good time before we move on to some more complicated stuff.
I'm also going to share a copy. So if you like haven't gotten up to this point yet, then you can just make a copy of this one and then continue from there.
All right, I'll stop sharing screen now and Cohen can take over then.
All right, so now that you have your completed chassis, uh, now we're going to work on putting some wheels onto it. So first, what you want to do is insert a part and scroll down, and you should see some orange bearings. The numbers end with 4008. So for the first one, click on the arrow to the left of the like actual part symbol, and then click on the first part in the list. The files should be included like within the document. So after you do this, you're just going to click on the check mark, and after that, you're going to do a revolute mate. That's the mate that is. Can you like select copy workspace, or let me check real quick. So one person says they can't make a copy of like the document, so to save the copy, just like go and click on copy workspace. So like you did before, you go to the top like bar with the name of the document, select the 3 lines that are there, and let me check to see if you can copy the file. Try refreshing it and see if you can copy it now. All right. Okay. And so now that we have that, I'm going to go over inserting the bearing again for anyone who like is lost right now. So go to insert and scroll down until you see it, like 2 orange bearings that are next to each other. They both should have their part numbers ending in 4008. And for either of them, to the left of like the image of the part, there should be a drop-down menu. So click that and then click the first part in that list. And then check mark. So now you're going to be doing a revolute mate, and that is located to the right of the fastened mate. If you hover over it, it should say revolute mate. So click on that and then zoom into the bearing. So for your first like mate connector, you want to select the very bottom of this like ridge in the bearing. And if you click on it, the entire bottom should become like a brighter shade of orange, basically. And then scroll out, and we're going to go to the one that, if you're in like this view, it should be on the very top. It is the back left side of the robot. And on the second hole in from the edge of the channel, you want to click on the edge of the hole that faces like inside the robot. And then you'll see that the bearing is sticking out. And to fix this, just click on this button with the 2 arrows, which allows you to flip the bearing. And then once you're done with it, if you still have a window that's like this, you can just click on the X to close it. And so now when you have your bearing in, you should be able to click and drag it, and it should spin along the robot. So now you're going to do the same thing, as in you're going to add another bearing. So go to Insert, scroll down to the two bearings that are right here, ending in 4008. Click on the drop-down menus and select the first part from the drop-down menu. And then just drag it on there and click the check mark. Then you're going to do another revolute mate, and you're going to click on the same part of the bearing as the first one, so the bottom of this ridge. Again, zoom in until it selects the entire surface. Click on it, and it should turn a brighter orange. And this time, you're going to attach it to the other side of that channel, that being the one across from the first bearing component. Again, it's the left back side of the robot, and you can tell which side of the robot it is by this like cube, which shows like the left, right, front parts of the robot. So you're going to click on the same like second hole in from the back side of the robot, and just like before, you're going to flip the axis so that the short side is facing out. And once you have that, you should, just like the first one, be able to click and drag it, and it should spin. So you can spin both of them separately from each other, but since they're going to be connected by one axle, it's better to make them both spin at one time. So to do this, you are going to do a parallel mate, and that is, if you see this little menu that contains the fastened mate, it's going to be on the very last option in that little mini menu. And it should look like two like flat squares with a double-sided arrow between them. And if you hover over it, it should say parallel mate. So click on that, and you want to go to the bearings, and the part that you want to click is the surface of one of the like hexagon shaped holes inside. And that's just because it's like a flat surface that's basically in the right spot to put a parallel mate. And then same for the other one. You're going to click on one of the flat surfaces on here and click there. And from there, you're going to do a check mark. And after you have that, you should be able to spin them both at the same time. So if I go to my left view and rotate my view slightly, if I click and drag on this one, the other one will also rotate along with it. So now we're actually going to put the axle that goes like in between the two beams. And one thing that I like to do when making the robot in CAD is basically, how would you put together the robot if you were building it like in real life? So after you put the two bearings, you would probably like slide the axle in. So for the axle, go to Insert, and you'll be doing something a bit different this time. Just put the bearings on one channel, just two bearings, but for one channel. So for your axle, once you press Insert, instead of just scrolling down and selecting something from the list, you'll see that there are actually two separate tabs in the bottom menu, and they are called Part Studios and Assemblies. So first, since we have some questions, to spin the bearings, just click and drag on the bearings themselves, and they should be able to like spin. And if they aren't, then check if you did a revolute mate instead of a fastened mate. And if you did accidentally do a fastened mate, so say instead of revolute 1, I did a fastened mate, and I also kind of just showed you how to fix that. So to edit that mate, just go to the menu and first hover over the mates that you have and look for the ones that are on your bearings. And then if you see a fastened mate on one of your bearings, just double click on that. And in this menu, there should be a drop down menu below like the main fastens. And if you click on that, it should list all the different types of mates. So you want to select revolute instead of fastened, and you'll see that the mate actually switches to a revolute. And from there, you can just click on the check mark and everything should be all good. So for the axle, again, there are actually two like tab things. One for like the document. We're not really going to be using that because all of our parts are in this document. For the parallel mate, you want to click on like the ends, like not the ends, the flat surfaces that are like in the hole of the bearing. So you'll see that there are like 6 flat surfaces because it's a like hex type of system. So you just want to click on one of these surfaces like so. And then for the other bearing, just do the same thing. Click on one of the inside like surfaces. And then once you have that solved, you should be able to spin them both at once. And then if you have any more questions, just send a message in the chat so I can make sure that everyone's pretty much good with this. And then we can move on to the axle. So if we don't have any questions now, we're going to move on to actually putting in the axle. So again, insert, there's 2 separate like tab things. One is documents, which we're not going to use because all the parts we want are in this specific document. The second one is part studios and assemblies. So in Onshape, there are like 2 types of documents, which are part studios and assemblies. Part studios are just like one like part basically. And assemblies have multiple part studios in one. And you'll see our axle is not really like other axles. It has like something at the end to stop it. So it's actually in assembly. So in this menu, we want to click on assemblies, and the axle should be the second axle you see. It should be blue and should end in 0800. And then just click on that and drag it in and check mark. So you'll see that it's basically a hex axle with a circular ring at the end, that's to like hold it in position basically. So you might think that we want to do a revolute mate because we want it to spin, but we already did our revolute mates for our separate axle, our separate bearings. And if we like fasten our axle to them, it'll still spin, but it'll spin together with the bearings, which is actually what we want for this. So we're going to do a fastened mate, and the part we're going to click on is actually not on the like blue axle itself. It's going to be on the orange ring. So click on the edge of the orange ring so that the like icon that shows up is in the center line of the axle, and make sure the edge is facing towards the long side of the axle as well. And once you have that, you can go to your bearing and select the very top surface of it. That's like this thick circular area. And once you click on that, it should like put only the ring in there. And to fix this, in the little menu, there should be a button called Solve, and that's basically going to take into account every part that's attached. And you'll see that the axle is actually sticking out the wrong way. So just like before, you want to click on the two arrows to flip it, but you'll notice the axle is still in like the wrong position. And that's simply because you haven't solved it yet. So if you press on solve again, it should be located in the right place. And then the orientation of the axle, which I might be getting a little nitpicky because it doesn't really matter, but if you want to fix it so that it's like completely fitting in, just press the circle icon next to the arrows and then solve again, and that should fix it. So if it's sticking out the right way, you don't need to like flip it. You can just finish the mate from there. But if it's sticking out the wrong way, you can just press the two arrows and make sure to solve so that you don't think that like, oh, it's the wrong way because the axle is. Make sure you solve it first, because for assemblies, not all of the parts are going to move when you do like a mate. So for our next part of this, we're going to do the stuff that's located on the inside of our channel. And if you go to like the kit that we're actually going to be building, the underside has like a lot of sprockets and gears in it, and those are what we're going to be adding now. So go to Insert and go to Assemblies again and click on the second orange gear that shows up. It should end in 0030. And just click on that and drag it in, which is good. And click the check mark from there. And similarly to before, like the axle, we don't want to do a revolute mate because we want it to spin like along with the axle. So we're going to do a fastened mate. And for your fastened mate, you want to click on the very bottom surface of the gear. That part is going to be circular, and it's like the kind of thinner part of the gear, I guess. So just click on there, and for your other mate, like the axle, you want to attach it to the bearing, but this time you want to attach it to the other side of like the same bearing so that it faces inside the channel. And also, like before, there's going to be like a large circular surface on the outside. So just click on there and you'll see that it's pretty much there. And the screws that are left behind, again, you just need to solve them and they'll come right in. And yet again, if you're seeing like the hole on there and you think that it should like be lined up basically, you can just do a rotate and that'll solve it. But it's not really required, it's just like appearance purposes only really. But it just makes your robot look cleaner. So questions, so you're actually not going to connect it to the axle, you'll connect it to the bearing. And this is the same process that you use to attach the axle. So yeah, just go to the top of the bearing and then click there, and it should be attached from there. And then just to check that it's fully working, you want to click and drag on your axle and your gear should rotate as well. If it's not, then just send a message in the chat and I'll tell you how to fix it. The process, if you like ever encounter that to fix it, is similar to the one that I did for the bearings, where say you did like a revolute instead of a fastened, again, you can just double click on that and change whichever type of mate it is from there. But if no one's having that problem, then we will go on. So now you've attached the gear, and if you're like curious, the gear is what's going to be used to connect it to the motor, if you see the document. So now we're going to add the sprocket, which connects it to the other wheels in the robot. So to do that, go to Insert and Assemblies, and then scroll down until you see a gray sprocket. The number should end in 0010. And actually, should be fine actually. So just click on the 0010 assembly. There are actually two of these, one is gray and one is white, but they're basically the same, like functionally. So just drag the sprocket in, and to attach it, you're going to use a similar process to what you used on the gear. You're going to do a fastened mate. And for your first connector, again, like the gear, you're going to click on the bottom, or actually this time it's the top edge of the sprocket, basically the part that sticks out from the rest of it. And then you're going to attach it to the bearing, just like you did with the gear. And this time it might like be in the wrong way. If it's like facing towards the inside, then you don't need to flip it. But in this case, just press the arrows and that's going to flip it. And then again, just for like alignment purposes, do one rotate so that it lines up with the axle. And then press solve to put the little screws back in, and then do a check mark. And then, just like before, to test it, just click and drag on your axle, and then both your gear and sprocket should rotate. And now we're going to put on the motor this time. And after the motor, that should take us to the end of day one. So yeah. So first you want to go to Insert and Assemblies, and then scroll a bit down until you see something that looks like a motor, and it ends in 0019, assembly symbol. Make sure it's the full motor and not the one that's like half a motor. So make sure it's assembly symbol and not just simple. So once you have that, you can click and drag it in and press the check mark. Let me see. So to add on the motor, you are going to do a fastened mate, and this one's going to be like a bit weird, but it should be easy. Like if you manage to put on the blue connectors, you should be able to put the motor on. So first you want to like hover over this like little thing that sticks out from the motor. Do the one that's like on the top right of the motor, just so that we can be all on the same track. And you'll see that there's like a ton of different like mate connectors. The one that you want to hover over is the one in the very middle of like the large hole with that you can put a screw into. And once you have that, you can click on there, and now you're going to attach it to the channel. So you'll see that the bearing that you already put is like in the middle, this like part that sticks out. Basically what you want to do is have your motor, so you see this hole that's like in between the axle and the channel you put in. So go to the top and the right of that, and this one's going to be a bit harder, but you want, if you like select here in this hole, you're going to see that there are 3 connectors. You want to select the one that's closest to the center. And then you'll see that it's not really the right way. So just like press the arrows to flip it, and it should be good. If it's like not vertical, so say if it's like this and it doesn't cover up the hole fully, just do the rotate button, which is the circle to the right of the arrows. And if you're wondering about this like axle part of the motor, just press solve and it'll be put into the motor. And then after that, just press the check mark, and then if you click and drag on the white axle, you should see that it moves, but not the rest of the motor. It should also be lined up in the middle of this like hole, basically. And if you're having trouble again, feel free to ask a question. But as long as we're here, we'll move on and first, yeah, okay. So what you want to do is, once you have the motor actually inserted, do a fastened mate, and then hover over this part that sticks out on the top right of the motor, and select the connector that's like in the center of this, center of the hole that has like a basically screw in it. And then for your second connector, which is a bit trickier, go to the large hole that's in between the axle and the channel, and you want to select the hole that's up and to the right of it, and you want to select the part that's closest to the center. And then once you have that, just do a flip and solve, and the motor should be in the correct position. So now that we're done, we're going to insert a bearing. So like the previous ones, don't forget that you go to the drop-down menu in the Part Studios tab, and then select the first part. And then check mark, and this time you're actually going to revolute it onto the channel. Basically, that's because for the actual revolute mate that's on this axle, it's like kind of hard to get to, as in like it's not in the main like mate features menu. So we're just gonna create a new one and make it parallel so that it's easier to access. So go to the revolute mate and orient your view so that the bearing, the bottom side of like the ridge on the bearing is visible. And then like you did for the first two, select the bottom of that ridge, and it should like light up after you click it. Then for your second mate connector, you want to go to the hole that has your motor axle in it, and make sure you select the channel and not the axle itself. So click there, and then you can simply flip it if it's not in the correct position. And before we do our like parallel mate, just make sure that you can see like little parts of the hole sticking out. And that's just going to make it easier to actually do our parallel mate. So first you want to actually get your parallel mate on there, and for your first connector, this is going to be a bit like tricky. So you can zoom in, and what you want to do is basically don't like move your mouse until it's like shows this like inside surface of the bearing, and then you want to like move your mouse like ever so slightly so that your connector is in the middle, which actually it doesn't really matter where you put it, just as long as it's lined up with this surface, and click it, and that entire surface should light up. For your second one, you can just click on any of the surfaces on the white axle, and you'll notice that your bearing like comes out. Just solve it and it should move back into where it should be. And then just check mark on that, and once you have that, if you like click and drag on your bearing, the axle should move as well. So now, the last thing we're going to do today, this was a parallel make. And if you need help on how to do it, then just send another message in the chat. But our last thing for today is we're going to add a gear onto here. And yeah, so go and insert a part and go to assemblies and do the same gear that you did before, which ends in 0030, and it's the second orange gear. And then drag it in and do a check mark and do a fastened mate for your first connector, just like before. You want to put it on like this bottom kind of surface. Click there, and for your second connector, just click on the top of your bearing. And then since it's inside the motor, just flip it and it'll be brought outside of the motor. Do solve to bring the little screws back in, and just do a check mark. And yeah, that should be it. Stick around if you have any questions, but first, like to test it, if you click and drag on the gear, your axle on your motor should move as well, but you'll notice that the other gear doesn't move along with it. So we're going to deal with that tomorrow, as well as basically putting all 6 wheels onto the robot. So if you don't have any questions, you can leave the meeting now. And if you do have questions, then you can either ask in the chat, or we'll also have a recording uploaded to our channel, I believe, and that should help you. But yeah, no problem. Again, stick around and I'll be available to answer any questions, but if you don't, again, you're free to leave.